I'm starting mine.
Gregory. Ready?
We are.
Welcome to the Inside Carolina podcast / YouTube / live event. I'm your host, Tommy Ashley, joined by a lot of Inside Carolina crew members. First of all, I want to talk about Johnny T-Shirt, johnnytshirt.com. They are great sponsors of this website, of this podcast. You got to take care of them. They're alumni owned and operated. They sell some great stuff, great Carolina gear, anything you could possibly want. They've got the cool baseball jerseys. And as you know, baseball season has begun in Chapel Hill. So get over there or get online and check them out. And you get 10% off if you're an Inside Carolina Premium subscriber. So that's always good as well. I've got Gregory Hall with me. He's manning the YouTube live stream. Of course, I've got Greg Barnes, the best beat writer in the world. And I've got John Bowman. It has been a long time since John Bowman has come on an Inside Carolina podcast. What's going on, my man?
Doing well. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, we lost Luke Buxton to vacation, I hear. I'm not sure. College kids going on vacation. That's news to me. I thought it was all a vacation. Let's talk about why we're here. Carolina awaiting the Notre Dame Wake Forest winner. So we've all got that game on, and when it picks up after half, we'll certainly comment on it. But Greg, the mood of this team, what do you think it is after that big Duke win coming into this ACC tournament? I mean, if it plays like it has for the last 3 weeks, tomorrow night doesn't matter who they play. But, looking ahead, Carolina's got to be in a good place. If they could ever get in a good place, it's got to be after a Duke win like that, right?
Yeah, for sure. And I think the team feels the same way that the fan base feels, and the same way that Roy Williams feels. Is they had a very good game against Duke. And if you look back over what they've done on the last 3 Saturdays, you've got a 99-54 beat down of Louisville. You've got a incredible comeback against, at the time, number 11 Florida State. And then you got a blowout win over Duke on senior night. Those are your 3 Saturdays. We won't talk about what happened midweek, right? But that's kind of how this team is. And Armando Bacot, I thought, summed it up incredibly well after the Duke games. Like, when we do certain things right, we're really good. And, we can play with anybody. The problem is there's no consistency whatsoever. And that's why Roy Williams has said after that game, he said today, I don't know. I mean, they're doing some things better. So you would like to think they would be able to continue that. But this team has not handled success well at all season long. They had a good run there in January, but it really has been a roller coaster ride in the last couple of weeks. And so you'd like to think that North Carolina's got a significant advantage on Wednesday night, regardless of who they play, whoever wins this game here. But who knows? And that's excruciating if you're a fan. It's maddening, but at the same time, it's highly entertaining because we just have no idea which Carolina team's going to show up.
Yeah, and I don't think. I mean, we've talked about it before. Seemingly every week, I've watched Carolina basketball for a long, long time. I've never seen it like this. Never seen it when they can look so good and literally so bad. Some of the best Carolina teams, some of the worst Carolina teams ever, and a lot of times in 4-minute segments. John, let me bring you in since it's been a while. We hadn't talked to you at all about this Carolina season. So what do you think is going on? I mean, why the maddeningly inconsistency that they have? Well, I mean, Roy Williams clearly has no clue. I don't think any of the players do. So you share your thoughts on what's going on here.
Yeah, I think a big part of it is the inconsistency of the guard play. We've seen that all season long. UNC has a very young backcourt. It's one of the youngest backcourts that Roy Williams has had. And when you have point guard like Caleb Love, who's learning on the fly throughout the season, and someone who missed a lot of preseason opportunities due to the coronavirus and everything that went into that, everything that's gone into this weird season, I think that's been a big part that's contributed to this inconsistent North Carolina team. We'll see how that plays out, though, in this second half or second portion of the season. In the ACC tournament, could allow Caleb Love and some of UNC's younger guards to get into a little bit of a rhythm and they could sort of hit their stride here in the ACC tournament, build off some strong performances that Caleb has had against Duke specifically. But I agree, inconsistency definitely has been the big theme of the season so far for UNC.
It's like John never left us.
He never did in spirit.
No, yeah, and I want to know how I can get to be an Inside Carolina intern, because all the interns turn out to be like big time. I need to figure out if Ben and Buck will let me do that. Gregory, as we watch Wake Forest and Notre Dame take the rims off.
Oh, that was a block.
Backboard.
That was a block. That was not a charge.
Are you guys ahead of me?
I've got 44-37 with 18:55 left.
Oh, you guys are like 20 seconds ahead of me.
Oh, well, you just you need to
I'll refresh.
But Gregory, Carolina's situation here going in against either one of these two teams, certainly watching them, you would think Carolina, that's definitely a block. You would think Carolina will look good against whoever plays, but who knows, right?
I mean, yeah, I think I keep going back and people keep bringing it up, just the fact that UNC had 5 different freshmen be ACC Freshman of the Week. I mean, it's incredible, the fact that they had that, but have they had a stretch where they've had like one game, and it was the Louisville game, where all 5 freshmen played at that caliber at the same time? And that's, I think, is what leading to the inconsistencies that John was talking about, you guys are talking about, right? Like, you have no idea. You could get a great Walker Kessler and a great RJ Davis tomorrow. On Thursday, literally 24 hours later, you could get a solid Caleb Love, and Dayron could go off and grab 8 offensive boards and have himself a day, right? But are all 5 going to do it? Probably not. Like, that's just, we haven't seen it. So you really don't know. And I think Notre Dame and I think Wake Forest, I think, are two similar teams in like the matchup wise. Obviously, that Nate Leshevsky, he loves to go lights out against Carolina. So if Notre Dame wins, UNC could definitely be looking out for them. But then Isaiah Musius did the exact same thing. So I think they're two comparable teams when it comes to who they're going to play tomorrow.
And Wake Forest is shooting lights out from 3-point range. So I don't know if that bodes well or not. But
was it like, do they keep it up or? Right?
Yeah, right. But both teams are shooting well. Wake Forest currently 7 of 15, and Notre Dame's 5 of 13.
You got the game and stat broadcast up. What do you?
Greg has
do this for a living, man.
I know, really. I learned that yesterday interviewing Daz Newsome. There's people that do it, and then there's people that do it for a living. And Greg's one of the guys that do it for a living. And it was readily apparent when we were talking to young Daz Newsome on the latest Inside Carolina podcast. Greg, looking at these two teams, and it's funny because when I'm watching them, I'm thinking, oh, I don't want Carolina to play Notre Dame. You know, that's just screams 3-point lights out. But then I forget about Wake Forest has got the bigs that have put up mid-30s at least once this season. I mean, both these teams could give a C game Carolina all they could handle.
Oh yeah, any team
Yeah, really.
could give the C level Carolina run, which is the crazy thing. I think those are good points there, Tommy, in terms of Wake's bigs. But if you look at the whole body of work, you kind of have to choose. Okay, Wake Forest doesn't do anything really well, but they're average across the board, right? But then you've got Notre Dame, and Mike Brave has no clue how to coach defense. But, man, the guy's incredible in terms of spacing offensively and creating open looks. I mean, they're top 20 nationally in adjusted offensive efficiency. Just not very good defensively, can't force turnovers. But if you're playing North Carolina, Carolina tends to help in that regard. So you kind of have to pick your poison. And if Notre Dame's hot, you probably don't want to play them. But I think probably the best team that you want to play is Wake, just because they're average, but then they've got the bigs like you mentioned. So it just depends on which of these teams show up tomorrow, and then what North Carolina does as well.
Yeah, it certainly matters. Once upon a time, it didn't matter which opponent showed up. If North Carolina did their thing, they would win pretty easily. And those days obviously are clearly over. Wake up 52-42 as we carry on an Inside Carolina podcast. John,
That's a great point, though, Tommy. Is a lot of the fretting over North Carolina this year and the inconsistency. Uh, North Carolina has talent, but I think it's the experienced talent that Roy likes to talk about. And when you have experienced talent that is really good, you can play your B game and still win a lot. Carolina cannot do that. And so Carolina has to play its A game. And it's like we talked about in football, Tommy. As Mac has said, you want to be good enough where you can say, okay, we're going to have 4 bad games, but we're going to be so much more talented than our opponent that's not going to matter. And Carolina just is not at that point with this basketball team. And we've got another living legend walking in here, so I'm going to shut up, Tommy.
I started to go
walk
to
into
John.
Zooms?
Yeah, he just like comes dancing into the Zooms. He's on the patio tonight. Of course, if you're watching us, it's the only way to know what's going on. Sherelle McMillan, what's going on, Rel?
Yeah, I didn't realize I was interrupting like actual podcast stuff. I thought it was just like, oh, we're watching the game, and that's the way you explained it to me.
Yeah, this is a podcast / live watch party. We're doing stuff different. You know where I got the idea, and I shared the link with the others. Rel, do you remember, or did you happen to see when Kevin Hart did that one back during quarantine where he had like, and Gregory mentioned one too, where Kevin Hart started out with a couple people and it just kind of ballooned into a ton of different people on there busting on each other and stuff. And that's what I was thinking. Maybe we can have an
Oh,
Inside Carolina version of that.
I didn't see that.
But you got to, it's hilarious. And then
It's funny.
Gregory mentioned the one, and maybe we can do this with you guys, is whoever has the most famous person on their phone, get them to join the Inside Carolina Live podcast / watch party. So
You just like send the Zoom link, no context. You just text it to them, and then you see who hops in, and then like Katie Nolan, I think they did it, and she like Aaron Rodgers hopped in, and some of these like famous names around, and they come in, they're like, "What is this? Like, what's going on?" It's pretty funny.
it could be fun. There's not much else to do as we watch Wake Forest
I mean, Wake
and
Forest
Notre
is-
Dame. Wake Forest is burying Notre Dame as well. Sherelle, we were talking about the inconsistency of this Carolina team, and you've talked about it a ton. Um, on the Coast to Coast podcast with Joey Powell, and also on the Inside Carolina Live on the weekends. And the point I made to Greg right before you came in is that this Carolina team, it used not to matter. It didn't matter who they played. It didn't matter if they didn't play perfect or not. They were going to win. The talent level, I assume it's the talent level, or is it that's just changed for this Carolina team in the last couple of years? Well, they have to play well to win.
Yeah, it's probably talent level, I would say. I think that's less of an issue this year. I think this year is just the parts are so disparate, like we've been saying for a while, in that sometimes they don't necessarily fit together well. So one player's strength doesn't necessarily complement the guy beside him. So I think that's a big issue for UNC this year. And then, frankly, not to go over it for the 119th time, but just a really weird year with a lot of weird situations where it's hard to get into a groove, during a season. You play Saturday, then you play Monday, then you have 12 days off because of, health and safety protocols. Then you play 2 games in 4 days, and then you have another 7 days off because of health and safety protocols. So it's hard to get into a groove and get into your normal kind of regimen where, game off 2 days, game off 3 days, game off 2 days, so on and so forth. So I think that's missing from for players too. And then just North Carolina in general, man, like freshman guards, like it's cliche and we've talked about it a lot, but when you're depending on 2 freshman guards, really 3, if you count Kerwin Walton, there's going to be ups and downs. It's just the way it is. And I don't know if Carolina fans really expected that because of how highly touted some of these guards have been in the last couple of years, but everybody goes through it, no matter who you are.
Trying to get some other Inside Carolina people on. I'm not going to say who just responded when I said, hop on this podcast. He said, for what? I'm not going to say who it is. Maybe he'll join us in a minute. John, I started to come to you earlier. I wanted to talk about the season a little bit. Give me an MVP for this Carolina basketball season, regular season, in your opinion.
Sure. And then I also want to do a quick story time because I want to tell the story of when I watched Carter Witt with Sherelle at the John Wall Invitational. So we can do that a little bit later. But in terms of UNC's MVP this season, I am going to have to give it to the only member of the team to make the All ACC teams, I believe, Armando Bacot. I think he's been really consistent this season for UNC. In a season like we've talked about that's been up and down, he's been the big man who's brought it the most consistently night after night. And he also, he improved a lot this season. We watched him last year as a freshman. There were some major holes in his game, and I think he took a step forward in every aspect of his game this season, arguably. So I'm excited to see what he can do in the ACC tournament and what he can do potentially in the NCAA tournament, because I think he's had a really strong year for UNC.
Gregory, I hadn't talked to you in a second. Do you agree with the Armando Bacot as the MVP of this season?
Yeah, I think I have to. I don't necessarily want to, just because he's disappeared a lot, but they all have. I wanted to give it to Dayron, and I thought Dayron was on the right path. But then as Walker Kessler's gotten into it a little more, their contributions have kind of split as far as who's on game to game. But Armando, when in UNC's wins, he's scoring points. When he's not scoring points, UNC has more losses. That's just how it's gone for UNC with Armando Bacot. If he's in foul trouble, then they kind of rely on Garrison, but Garrison hasn't been the monster at the rim that Armando has. Armando's ability to finish at the rim has been very high this season. So I have to give it to Bacot. But I don't necessarily think he's their best player, but he has been the MVP this season.
Greg, and then I want your opinion as well, Rel. Can we give the MVP to a guy who, yes, has played well, led the team in scoring, has looked really, really good at times, but if you had to say this guy's got to play well for Carolina to win, I'd put him probably 4th or 5th on the list. Can we give the MVP to that guy, Greg?
Well, when John put his name out there, my first thought was, well, I don't disagree.
That's one of
not
those.
Not that I necessarily agree.
If it's not a definite yes, it's a no. Isn't that what they say?
But
Who's
yeah,
they?
but you also have to have
Me.
You also have to have an alternative, right? Like if you're going to complain about something, I was always told you're going to complain about something, you better have a solution. So if you're going to knock Bacot a little bit and say, well, no, he's not the MVP, when you have to make a case for somebody who is, I don't know. It's one of those things. Like I think North Carolina's offense is at its best when Kerwin Walton is able to knock down some shots. That opens up everything. But I think North Carolina's offense, kind of what it needs to do to be effective is get the ball down low. And I think Bacot is the best post option that they have. I think Sharp is a force, but I think he just does so much of his work on the offensive glass and cleaning up some messes. Whereas Bacot, you can actually get him the ball in the block and he can provide some moves and score on his own. And then, Caleb Love's an interesting case too, because has he been inefficient? Yeah, like significantly. But when he's in a groove and he's not turning the ball over and he's finding his teammates, this team, there's not many teams that's going to beat them when they're playing at that level, when he's playing at that level. So I think there's a number of guys here. I don't think this is the team where you can say, okay, well, this is the one guy that matters more than anybody. And that makes it difficult when you're figuring out a team MVP. I think the banquet will be fascinating. How much does Roy Williams kind of put on leadership, which would kind of give Garrison some edge there. But I know the players have a big role in who determines, they determine who the MVP is. So all that to be said, I don't know about, I think Bacot's a good choice, but I wouldn't argue with the other guys that you name. And I don't think that's a good thing for this team. And I think that's why, we have a lot of question marks about them still. And we're in postseason play now.
Greg, did you fill out an all ACC ballot?
I did. Yes.
Did you put Kerwin on the all freshman team? Because a lot of people were saying he got snubbed and Caleb, like he should have been on it over Caleb. And I agree.
The only Carolina player I put on it was Dayron.
Okay.
We're going to revisit that in just a second. But Sherelle, I wanted to come to you. I got a feeling I know who If we're talking about most valuable, I know if there was one guy not on the roster, they might be in this game right here, the 14-11 seed game, as we watch that. Sherelle, MVP Carolina regular season.
If we're talking valuable, as in, without him, can they function? It's Kerwin Walton. I mean, I know he didn't start until I think after the new year was when he first started, maybe after the NC State game, actually. So just before the new year. And he didn't have a breakout game until really Kentucky. But what he does well is so much better. The difference between him and number 2 on the team, as far as what he does well, is so huge and so massive. I think it has to be him because it opens up so many things. Like Armando can do what Garrison can do, and Garrison can do what Armando can do, and Dayron can do what Walker can do, and Walker can do what Dayron can do, and on and on and on. But there's no one close, even remotely close, to being the shooter that Kerwin Walton is on the team. So I'm not saying he's the best player on the team, but when we talk about value and valuable and what he means to the team, I don't know how you can say anyone other than him just because of the impact he's had on the offense the last 6 weeks, I guess.
Yeah, my man, I agree with you 100% there. It would be painful to watch if they didn't have Kerwin Walton out there. Let's hear the Carter Witt story, because I was a big proponent of Carolina offering Carter Witt way back when I saw him in that John Wall tournament, and had heard about him since he's a fairly local kid. John Bowman, tell us the story of you and Real.
Yeah, I'm so glad you joined, Sherelle, because we can tell it together here. I think that was 2018 or 2019, the John Wall Invitational.
It was the most recent one before
COVID.
So that would have
COVID, so it would have been
that would've
19.
19.
Is that that's the tournament at Broughton, right?
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we were there to see Dayron Sharp, a young giraffe-legged, long-legged Dayron Sharp. He was impressive in that game, but I was impressed with Carter Witt as well. I think that when I was watching him back then, I was kind of impressed with his poise. He didn't seem to shy away from the moment. Anyone who's been to that John Wall Invitational knows it's a big event. It's very crowded. In the pre-corona times, it was, packed and loud, all that good stuff. So I was impressed with sort of his poise. He didn't shy away from the moment or anything. It's been interesting to watch him this season at Wake Forest. He's doing pretty well tonight in this game, but other than that, he's had a up and down sort of high school super senior year or freshman season, however you want to call it. But I just remember that part of watching him in the John Wall Invitational. It was a cool experience to see him there.
Sherelle, could a guy like, and we're just having fun here. I mean, he could have helped North Carolina. I think he's going to be very good for Wake Forest when it's all said and done.
Yeah, it's possible for sure.
Sherelle doesn't agree. That's how
Sherelle.
Sherelle
Sherelle is like, nope.
The nicest guy on the podcast right there. He's like, yeah, that's bullshit, Tommy.
I mean, he could help. I think he could help in the future. I think the issue with UNC was when it came to him, they were trying to figure out exactly what to do, post kind of Cole Anthony and even post Caleb Love, to be honest. And with Witt, it was always kind of whispered that he was going to reclassify. And if you know how Roy Williams recruits, that's just not something he typically goes for. So I think there was some hesitancy from UNC to really dive into the recruitment for that reason. I think maybe, there are other things too that just, as Roy Williams watched him a couple of times or saw him a couple of times, maybe there are a couple of things he liked and a couple of things he didn't like. And in the end, I think what the math they're doing is, can this player help us enough over the next 2, 3, 4 years to, if he's going to chase somebody away, so to speak. So if they signed him, say he was supposed to be originally in what class he's really supposed to be in 2021, but he reclassed. So it's like, well, if they sign him, then you're kind of landlocked because you've got RJ Davis already there. You got Caleb Love, trying to figure out what he's going to do moving forward. Then you would have Witt there as well, and it would make it a little less attractive to top flight point guards. And regardless of what people think or what he should do or how he does things, he's always going to go for these top flight point guards, the guys who have the one and done pedigrees. He just likes talented players, so that's where he's going to go. And I think that's ended up hurting Wood a little bit. Was the guys they already had on the roster you expect to be there a couple of years, and then had already offered players in 2022 who are kind of top 10, top 15 league guards. So I think that's where his recruitment never took off from a Carolina standpoint. But if they're missing a couple of guards after this season, and you're looking at the roster and you're saying, well, is DeMarco Dunn coming in? There's RJ Davis, and who else? It wouldn't be bad to have someone like a sophomore Carter Witt, back there, backing up RJ Davis or competing for a starting spot. So I get both sides of it, but that's kind of why I think he didn't end up at UNC.
Absolutely. Wake Forest, Notre Dame's cut it to 8, 10:52 left, 8-point game. Greg, back to your ACC ballots. Is that fair game that we can discuss? Because
Sure.
it will lead me to a discussion about another guy that I wanted to ask Sherelle about and get his opinions on how he was missed. But who'd you vote for all ACC, Greg?
Let's see here. I had first team Moses Wright, who I also picked for ACC Player of the Year. Carly Jones, Champagny, Jay Huff, and MJ Walker was first team. Second team had Amir Sims, Sam Hauser, Keve Luma, Raekwon Gray, and Matthew Hurt. And I was tempted to put Hurt even lower. I was a little surprised he got first team all ACC, but he scores a lot of points. I get it. And then third team, I had Alvarado, Scotty Barnes, Armando, Prentice Hub playing in this game here, and then Isaiah Wong.
So let me ask you, was this in the scale of being able to pull the first team out, was this as difficult a year or a pretty easy year? I mean, the names that you say for your first team, it sort of strikes me as those were pretty obvious.
And yet two of them didn't. Two of them didn't make the actual first team. I think part of the problem is, I had Alvarado third team, and I know a lot of people had him a lot higher than that. So I think in terms of depth was there because I don't think the high-end talent is there. And normally you have in the ACC, you have a bunch of guys who are contending for All-America honors. I don't know if ACC is going to have anybody that wins All-America honors this year, which kind of speaks to the issue that the league is facing. But there's a number of guys on these teams who are good players. They're just not great players. And so you have a bunch of good players. So in terms of depth, I think there was probably a legitimate 9 or 10 guys that you could probably make a case for first team All ACC. So from that standpoint, it was difficult. I talked with Sherelle and Ben, and we kind of tossed some names together around and trying to figure out, who makes sense, who doesn't, why. And I thought this first team was about the best I could do. And, MJ Walker is a guy, a senior. He's a great defender. He's a very good leader. To me, that matters. And so I know a lot of people didn't have him first team, and people value different things. People put a lot of value on points. That's how Matthew Hurt ends up on the first team, which is a little bit of a head scratcher to me, but so it goes.
Sherelle, the question, and to Gregory and John, this is learning how to respect your elders. I know I haven't called on you guys yet in a while, but when you have experts in the room,
you can tell who's the elder over there.
Yeah, when you bring the big brains in, we got to talk to them while they're here. Sherelle, Moses Wright. I tweeted something. I obviously upset somebody because they got on me for banging on recruiting experts, which I was not doing that. It was just a fact that a guy from Enloe could end up ACC Player of the Year at Georgia Tech. How does that happen in this day and age, Sherelle?
I mean, to be honest, he wasn't good enough as a senior to get the offers, from the in-state schools. And I think, a lot of times people don't like to hear that. Like, guys get better. You don't. I think the fallacy is that guys come into college, come into UNC, they're finished products, they're play 30 games and are off to the NBA, and it just doesn't work like that. Specifically at UNC, but there are a lot of places where it doesn't work that way. And so I think he's someone who came in and worked hard. He had unique opportunity. He had a coach who, for whatever you want to say about Josh Pastner, he at least valued what Moses Wright does on the court. I think, and put him in a position to succeed. And then, frankly, he had a 6-game stretch that really pushed him over the top. So it was a combination of, him working hard is definitely part of it. But then the opportunity that was afforded him at Georgia Tech, the lack of talent, I would say, overall in the ACC, especially high level talent. North Carolina and Duke having down years, Virginia not having that one player who kind of, uh, you know, becomes the first round pick like they've had over the last 5 or 6 years. And then he had a really good stretch. So, I mean, it's great for him, and I don't want to take anything away from him, but I think you have to consider all of those things when you say, well, how did he end up being player of the year? It's not just like everybody missed and he went to Georgia Tech and became this beast. There was a lot of moving parts in there for what happened, him being named player of the year to happen.
Yeah, and I think people have to give kids credit too, because while there are a lot of guys that come out like a Zion Williamson, I mean, pretty early on that he's going to be a stud. But there's a lot of guys like Luke May and Luca Garza and what Moses Wright has done, who just busted the rear end. And so at some point, it's not about scouts missing. It's about these kids developing, putting in the time and the effort, and making a name for themselves. So hats off to him for just an incredible year. And he had a good year last year. And if Luke was here, Luke would let everybody know.
Oh my God,
that
yeah.
Moses was a guy that he put on his first team preseason All-ACC. So
Luke
I want to
posted
make sure everybody knows that for Luke.
Someone asked in the chat, where's Luke? He's on vacation and he was too good to join us. But he had connection issues. He couldn't join. But Luke posted a photo of him and Moses, like their senior year. I mean, Moses is a baby compared to what he looks like now.
He's a different person.
Like, he is skin and bone. Like, it's crazy what he looks like being a senior at Enloe to what obviously ACC Player of the Year, and Luke obviously put him on his ballot, and no one we don't know, but probably no one else did. But yeah, Notre Dame's cut it to 6, by the way. I think Cormac Ryan just went off. I think he rolled his ankle.
Which is not a good thing.
Which is not good. It didn't look that bad, but you never know with ankles.
So how's this? The two teams combined are 19 for 40 from 3-point range.
That's promising.
That's some
so
foreshadowing.
Regardless of who wins.
Well, I mean, the first weight game, I mean, they couldn't miss. I mean, the names are escaping me now, but
Musius.
I mean, they were
Was it Musius that hit for so many against Carolina?
Seven. Yeah, it's 7. So, and then Leszewski had 6 from Notre Dame. So, I mean, they're going to give up threes. Like, it's going to happen no matter who they play. It's just a matter of can they force them into shooting such a bad percentage that it doesn't matter and control the boards. But they're going to hit threes. So,
I mean,
Wake hit 13 3-pointers against UNC in the first meeting. And then let's see, Notre Dame was they only hit 11. So.
Only hit 11, yeah.
But what was the differential between makes for Carolina and makes for them?
Well, UNC's only made
so
10.
Notre Dame made 11. North Carolina actually shot well that game.
Okay.
They had 8, so only a 3 differential there.
9.
Yeah, and then
you see, Duke is favorited over Louisville tomorrow.
It wouldn't surprise me. I'm telling you. And I'll say this again. I've said it on this podcast. I've said it on when the brackets come out on Sunday and Duke's not in it, I'll believe Duke's not in the tournament.
It was 13-3 Wake Carolina on threes.
So minus 30.
David Williamson.
Minus 30. That's unbelievable.
David Williamson just hit another 3. He is 4 for 4, and he has not missed. And he's a walking bucket.
Maybe they'll get him all out today if you're a Carolina partisan.
Boy, look at there. He was out of bounds. That's one thing I've noticed. especially since the courts are more visible, is these guys are out of bounds all the time. I'll never forget, since we had story time earlier with John, I'll never forget going to the 96 ACC tournament, sat on the in line with the baseline in Stefan Marbury's family section. So I knew he was going pro after his freshman year, probably after everybody else in the world did. But his family said he was going. But Tim Duncan stepped out of bounds 5 or 6 times in that game, and they never call it. It is fascinating to watch.
It is the craziest thing, Tommy, because every single game, especially when we're courtside, like they come around those screens, and yeah, they're always out of bounds.
And
it was like, I think it was the FSU game a couple weeks ago. RJ Davis, his entire left foot was on the line, on the baseline, and then it blew the whistle. I mean, it was like he should have been. He was 3 or 4 inches clearly out of bounds, and then blow the whistle. But
yeah, that was like, I couldn't believe it, because every time Duncan got the ball on the post and would turn baseline to make some move, he stepped out of bounds, and they never ever called it. It's like, what is the guy on the baseline looking at? They never see it. And
then when they do call it, everyone's like, "Why are you calling that? They should call it more."
Well, they replay. Let's talk about some random stuff here, since we're waiting on commercials for Wake Forest and Notre Dame. And oh yeah, before I forget, please sponsor Johnny T-Shirt and JohnnyT-Shirt.com, and visit them and do it all. I say it over and over because I mean it. We need to look after them as they look after us. They sell everything you could possibly want if you want Carolina gear. So look after them and get that 10% off if you're a premium subscriber. Random thoughts, Sherelle. No, go ahead, John. You I haven't talked to you in a minute. Ask a question for the group.
I have an interesting question for this audience here. Is Mike Bray coaching for his job? Because there's been some rumors. Jack Swarbrick is the AD, I believe, at Notre Dame. He, obviously has a relationship with Mike Bray, but Mike Bray is getting a little bit older. Notre Dame hasn't had as good a season this year or the last few years. What does everyone think?
I'll share that people getting fired during COVID season is pretty sorry. I mean, I thought Boston College was pretty sorry about what they did to Christian during the season.
I mean, they
Sherelle, what do you
fired
think?
him earlier, but yeah, you're right.
But you can't do it during this season. Sherelle,
No.
what do you think?
Yeah, I would be inclined to say no, just because you always have to think about, well, who are you going to get? Particularly, like Tommy said, in this kind of environment financially, even though Notre Dame's a private institution, you just have to wonder if that is the best allocation of the resources from your boosters to pay the buyout and then pay the new coach's buyout and then give the new coach a nice rich contract. Maybe just, run it back and see what happens. They've got a couple of good players. They've got a transfer, I think, coming in from the Ivy League. He's supposed to be pretty good. So, give them another year, see what happens. And if you feel the same in a year, then, go ahead and do it. But, I do understand why, though, the sentiment is there, because things can get stale very quickly if you're not evolving and changing and studying and recruiting at a high level. And I think Bray has done a couple of those things, but not all of those things. So I understand the sentiment, but if I was the AD, I'd be inclined to give him another year.
Greg, to that point, I mean, I want you to offer your thoughts on that Notre Dame deal, but the money, I mean, we talked about how much money a school like Carolina's lost. I can't imagine what everybody else has lost. I mean, how do you make coaching changes during this year or this time?
the reason that you make coaching changes is because you have no other choice. Like, North Carolina had no intention whatsoever of firing Larry Fedora in 2018 until they had no choice. Recruiting had stalled out. The fan base was done with him. The team wasn't playing well. And so even though they didn't want to have to pay the buyout and they were willing to give him a little bit more time, they had to make that decision. I mean, I think that's pretty much what you're looking at most of these programs. I don't think Notre Dame is in a situation where they need to get rid of Mike. Now, have things gotten stale? Possibly. I'm a big Mike Bray fan. There was the great feature on him a couple years ago that you said he looked like a guy that was coming out of a Vegas sunset, just kind of the scruffy face. And I just thought that was a fantastic kind of look at him. But he's always had very good offenses. I thought they had one of the better teams in the country a couple years ago. Bonzie Colson got hurt. They ended up not getting into the NCAA tournament, which I thought was a travesty. Then they got beat like in the second round in the NIT anyway when Colson came back. But Mike had a good stretch there where they won a lot of games. I guess 2 of the last 3 years they've really struggled. But if you look at this particular team, I mean, most of the guys are upperclassmen. Juwan Durham, I think, is the only senior that's seen a lot of minutes, and he could potentially come back. So if you're looking at the roster and kind of what they've done offensively this year, I think you do give him another year. When you have so many upperclassmen, so many seniors next year, however, then it becomes a conversation of, okay, if he doesn't get it done next year, where's the pipeline? This is going to be better. And so maybe it is next year if they don't have a good year, and then you start thinking about making a change. But he's been in South Bend for how long now? 20 years?
At
2001, 2002, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. He is if I had to pick one Duke guy that I enjoyed watching coach, is him. I've always thought he was pretty cool. I mean, Greg, to your point about the Vegas Sunset, it looks like he's the dude you can have a beer with.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, he wore shorts to the UNC game.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like, I'm going to do what I want. But
he took over for Doherty. Yeah, 2001.
he sure did. That's
yeah,
right.
he took over for Doherty. Yeah.
Wow, Sherelle bringing
20 years.
cold
That's a
chills
long
into
time.
it. Let's looking at this game, 6-point game, 5 minutes left. What have we seen, Gregory? You're watching it. What have you seen from these two teams that can give Carolina some pause, other than what we've already talked about, the 3-point shooting? Even though I'm not sure I see a whole lot else from either one of them.
No, Wake Forest is really not even looking to get the ball inside. Look right now, they got 5 guys on the perimeter. And they're doing a lot of off-ball moving along the baseline to try to get open corner threes. Notre Dame is it's a block. Notre Dame with Juwan Durham in there, I think matches up pretty similarly to UNC, just because they can get the ball inside to Juwan. Leshevsky can kind of step in as more of a stretch than Garrison is. But I don't know if UNC can attack inside, like we've been saying neither of these teams have the depth as most teams in the country don't. UNC is one of the larger teams in the country. Inside, if they can attack inside, then it should be a solid, easy win for them. But it's UNC, and what we talked about at the beginning of this, I don't think anything's an easy win unless you're shooting lights out against Louisville.
Yeah, really. John Bowman, let me come to you on Walker Kessler. We haven't talked about him tonight, and he's been fantastic late in the season. What have you thought about his progression here? He goes from no minutes. He doesn't – what's he averaging,
He
Greg?
was absolutely assaulted there, and they didn't call the foul.
Oh,
I'm sorry. What was it?
I was like, assault? What are we talking about?
Hub had his head taken off on a transition layup, and they didn't call foul.
Yeah, these guys, and that's another thing that we can talk about. The touch fouls in one area, and I don't like complaining about the refs, but the touch fouls in one area, and then like you said, he gets hammered, and they say get up and play on. Anyway, John, Walker Kessler, your thoughts on his play and his progression thus far this season?
Yeah, I think with Walker Kessler, you have to start with his physical gifts, his height, his length. If you were to put him on the court right now with this, Notre Dame Wake Forest matchup, he would be the biggest guy on the court. He'd be the longest guy on the court. So anytime you have that type of size and length, that's a humongous advantage. And I think he's taken advantage of his opportunities as the season has gone along. It's been, well documented, all the, stops and starts. I think one of you wrote a story about this, so I don't want to take credit for this storyline, but he's, had his ups and downs this season with his COVID pauses. I think I've been really impressed with him. I like his defensive potential, especially. I think that as he learns to diagnose
Top ball
the
game.
game. Yeah, there you go.
Greg,
75.
Greg, you're
You guys are
ahead
so
of us.
far ahead of me.
Yeah, y'all are ahead by a couple minutes. Wake Forest is literally a mess in the bed against Notre Dame.
Continue,
Anyway.
John. I'm sorry.
12-0 run. It's a 12-0
I forgot
run,
this
right?
is
Hey,
a
we're
watch
watching
party.
We're watching. Go ahead, John.
No, but I think Walker Kessler on the defensive end is very exciting, and it's going to be interesting to see how he plays out. his career at UNC, because I don't think he's done after this season.
Sherelle, did you have, when you were looking at the freshmen coming in, and you've done it for a long time, did you see Kessler's game translating this early? And granted, it's not in 35 minutes a game; it's in 12-minute spurts. But did you see him having some of the success that he's had this season when you were watching him as a high school senior?
Yeah, I thought it would be earlier. I thought it would be a little more consistent. Like you said, not necessarily coming in and playing 30 minutes a game, but I thought it would be more of a rotation, even though, I guess typically Roy Williams likes to play kind of the three post guys. I thought it would be closer to what they did in 2017, which is just rotate those four guys, Luke, Isaiah, Kennedy, and Tony Bradley. But I think what Walker Kessler could have been doing for the team the entire time was the rim protection. And to John's point, that is something that I don't think people really realize. Like, his wingspan is almost, 7'4.5", 7'5". It's almost impossible to shoot over him, for anyone of any regular size in college basketball. So you just think about him, his 2 feet and his arms out, he takes up the entire paint. So just think about that in the middle, kind of anchoring your defense. Now I know that when he gets taken out on ball screens, that can be problematic, but he's gotten better at moving his feet. But I thought, to John's point, his defensive potential would shine most this year. And then the offensive skill and the polish would show towards the end of the season and into next year. I honestly didn't think it would take, until the Florida State game. So that was probably like game 20 or 21 for everything to really click. And his minutes were a little inconsistent, I think, throughout the year. So he seems like a player who has to have a lather, get into game shape, so to speak, to be able to play. And I guess when you're playing 8 or 9 minutes, it's a little difficult to do that.
Greg, I was kind of surprised by his aggressiveness. That's the one thing. I mean, he's got skills, clearly, but the way he's gotten on the floor, I mean, there's been times where he's the first guy on the floor. And to be honest, that doesn't need to be happening when you got a freshman 7-footer as the first guy down on the floor. But Roy Williams has got to love that part of his game. If anything else, you got a guy that's willing to get in there and scrap.
I think Walker's potential is through the roof. Just because, a lot of the things that Sherelle said there, but to me, it's really just a confidence issue. And we're seeing him kind of come on, and the way that he's played here of late. Yeah, I mean, you're right. He's diving after balls. Defensively, he's got to get a lot stronger, but when he does, he is going to be a force just because he's so incredibly long. And they really frustrated what Florida State wanted to do. And you don't see that very often against the Seminoles because they're so big and athletic. He's got a good touch. Yeah, I mean, when you combine that with his ability to play tough and to kind of get dirty, yeah, I think he's got a bright future ahead of him. Needs to get stronger, needs to continue to build the confidence. Yeah, I thought it was funny that Roy said because of those COVID pauses, like John mentioned, they were in Maui, and he put Walker on the court and called a play, and he said Walker looked at him like he was talking Chinese, and that's part of the deal for freshmen. And because he had, I guess, about 4 weeks where he was isolated, and this is not like an injury. I mean, this is a matter of he's stuck in his room. He can't go to practice. He can't talk to his teammates, at least in person. He's just sitting in his hotel room. That's tough. I mean, can you imagine being an 18-year-old kid wanting to play for North Carolina, and that's what you find yourself in? So he was delayed, but for good reason. And I think there's just a lot of promise that he's shown here in recent weeks.
And Tommy, let me jump in. I think a story that shows kind of his commitment to getting better. So in August, everybody reported back in, I think it was the first week in July, Greg, I think that's right.
Yep.
And they finally got a chance to go home after they went through protocols and everything at some point in August. I think it was like 10 to 14 days that they got to go home. Well, Walker Kessler didn't go back home. He stayed in Chapel Hill, isolated, and worked, and was in the gym, was putting up shots, was lifting weights, just kind of by himself, in the Smith Center in the practice facility for that time while everyone else was gone. So he has the work ethic to get better. I don't think that's a concern at all. And then to Greg's point, you add in, his size and his length and the fact that he's going to get bigger, stronger, faster. And then the incredible skill that he has for someone his size. One of my favorite plays from him this season was, I think, against Duke, when Kerwin Walton was going backdoor and he was, going to cut into the paint, but Kessler had the ball on the wing and just had a nice bounce pass to him. Walton caught it in rhythm and rose for 2 points for a jumper from the baseline. 7-footers just don't do that kind of thing often. And I think Carolina has been fortunate that Day'Ron Sharpe and Kessler are such great passers this season. That's helped them tremendously too. But yeah, I think Kessler has, ACC Player of the Year, first team All ACC, All American type, future and skill and potential in front of him.
2-point game here with less than a minute.
Yeah, Greg, I think
Tie
ahead.
game.
Top ball game, yeah.
I've got
50.1 on the clock, tie game.
Yep, so that's what I have too. Carter Witt just hit a shot.
I got 40.7. Where you at, Greg?
30 seconds left. Top ball game. Wait for
it. He's got to shut up.
You need to pause it. Pause it and get on with us.
He's got that Holly Springs Wi-Fi. He's ahead of us.
That's right.
Really? We all know where I live.
Tommy, you remember we used to do that? I would be ahead, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to pause it. Because we were doing the post games, and I would pause it, and we're like, what do you see? I'm like, well, Carolina's up 5. You're like, oh, they're only up 3 where I'm watching.
Yeah, you're like, yeah, I'm ready to go. And I'm like, dude, the game's not even over. What are you ready? It's coming down to the wire. Greg, commentate for us.
I think we're going to overtime, guys.
Oh, that was an ugly shot.
All right, well, hold on. They got the Wake Forest has the ball. I'm behind all of you. So all live comment.
I got it. Carter Witt has the ball. Wow. Carter Witt has the ball. He's dribbling.
Go, Rel.
I've got 7 seconds. 5.
13.
14.
12.
13.
Chris Jenkins, baby. Chris Jenkins is all I'm going to say.
Oh no, that means Notre Dame.
Oh, blocked.
I still haven't seen it yet. Okay, I'm getting there.
Oh, that's the exact same shot.
It is. Trey Wirtz from Charlotte. Shot. Trey Wirtz from Charlotte, North Carolina.
Wow.
17-2 run to close the game for Notre Dame.
Waving bye to the 3 Wake Forest fans in the building.
Who blocked that shot? Did you guys see that?
Ryan got credit for it.
Oh, that hurts.
And Ryan's the dude that got hurt early.
Wait,
yeah, he's Stanford.
Wake Forest plus 245 is gone. That hurts.
I mean, that was literally a Chris Jenkins shot. That's crazy.
It was.
You said 17-2 run there,
yeah.
So they were up 75-63 and lost.
Yes.
Right here it is, replay.
Trey
Wirtz. That is the same Chris Jenkins play.
Just the other side of the.
It's a little bit to the right, but
yeah,
that's number 2. Right. Wasn't Jenkins number 2?
Yeah, it was Cormac Ryan with the block and the assist.
Yep.
We're bringing back a lot of bad memories.
That was a deep
All
shot.
right, so Notre Dame shot 51.7%. They hit 12 3-pointers. Here's the thing. North Carolina smoked Notre Dame on the offensive glass. Notre Dame just is not a good offensive rebounding team. In the first game, that differential was 22-3. Carolina does that tomorrow night. It's going to be very tough for Notre Dame to match that. But Notre Dame, as I said earlier, very good offensively. They always are under Mike Bray. And so Carolina cannot afford to have one of their off-night shooting where they shoot 42%, or else it's going to be a real tough challenge for them.
I got a question.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Gregory.
If UNC wins 4 games in 4 days, who's the tournament MVP?
Kerwin Walton. Kerwin Walton will have hit like 20 threes.
Yes, those two probably.
You don't think Day'Ron or Armando takes over?
No, I think that for Carolina to win games, the Walton or Love. I said it on the IC Live. If Love doesn't play well, Carolina ain't winning. I don't care what the bigs do.
Yeah, I was gonna say Caleb Love as well.
What do you think?
Not against good teams.
How many turnovers in that first Notre Dame game, Greg?
Let's see here. Oh, North Carolina, that's when they were playing good, taking care of the ball. They only had 9 turnovers. But part of that's because Notre Dame sucks defensively.
Right.
8 turnovers.
Right.
That game was in the Smith Center, right?
Yes.
And they tried to get Notre Dame, or Notre Dame would have played again, but they weren't coming back to the Smith Center.
Right.
To play again.
Well, that was the cool game where I think it was I guess that game is Carolina and Syracuse were supposed to play on the 2nd. Notre Dame was playing maybe Pittsburgh. I'm not exactly sure. But when those games got canceled, Mike Bray was like, well, we've already got a jet here to take us wherever we're going. let me call Roy. He was like, hey, let's play this game Saturday. And so that's how that came about, which is pretty cool.
Hey, Mike Bray love. John Bowman, I'm going to give you the floor. You can ask us a question, make a comment, whatever you want to do. You sat quietly.
I'm still feeling bad for Steve Forbes. Here's a guy, he needs a win. He needs something to build on heading into the offseason. Instead, he's just got another heartbreaking loss. I don't know. He's trying to build a program in Wake Forest. That's another tough pill to swallow for that fan base that's been through a whole lot. So
Roy has said a lot of good things about Steve Forbes throughout the season.
Maybe you shouldn't spike your face mask in your introduction.
That was so much. Yeah, that was a lot.
Is that what he did?
God,
Look,
that was a year ago. I can't believe all this stuff was a year ago.
It was.
Yeah.
So let me ask you a question. We sat there and watched them melt down. If Carolina melts down like that, people go crazy on Roy for not calling timeouts. Did he call a lot of timeouts right there in that run? I didn't notice that. Greg, were you paying that close attention?
There was some timeouts, but no, I'd have to go back and look and see exactly how many were called.
Somebody called one timeout at like the 6-minute mark and then around the 3, but I don't know if those were media timeouts or not. But I didn't really see any like stop the run type timeouts.
So Wake, he called 2 timeouts, one at the 6-minute mark and one at the 2:30 mark.
Oh, well, there you go.
So the moral of the story is, do timeouts work? Sherelle, do timeouts work?
Not if your team isn't good. I mean, just being honest, like you can call timeout as much as you want, but if you're not a good team, the same thing is going to happen. So,
I mean, I think Wake Forest drive right there was, drive down the lane, and if it's not there, try to dish it out, but he just forced it and got blocked. I didn't think they had a bad offensive possession. It's not like they turned it over trying to make a stupid pass or something. They just, Notre Dame hit the shot.
The guy that blocked him, though, was doubled over on the stairwell like 2 minutes before that.
Cormac Ryan was not.
It's a Jared Haas guy. I mean, it's floor burns. That's all it is. It's toughness.
Yeah. And that's the way Notre Dame's always played, I thought.
Yeah, and let me ask this to the group. So North Carolina is in this unique situation where they're in the tournament, the big dance. My opinion is, and not that my opinions matters at all, and this is pretty much, it seems like what all the bracketologist people think too, is that if North Carolina wins tomorrow night, they probably move off that 10 seed line. But now they're smack dab in the 8 to 9. So can Carolina get to Saturday without having to win and move up to her 7? Or do they need to win the ACC tournament to get off that 8-9 game?
I think it's how if they get to Friday, I think it's how they play in that Friday game.
This is so difficult thinking about how the ACC tournament used to be, and I'm like, Friday, what round is that?
Friday, the quarterfinals. That's the way it's always going to be. I don't care.
Yeah, really. I mean, roll the card into the classroom.
My tweet went viral, by the way.
The number 1 seed plays at 12 noon on Friday. That's it. That's the way it is. I don't care what this new age crap is. That's the way it's supposed to be.
Yeah, and if you're the 3, you're playing at 9:30 Friday night.
Right. Anyway, sorry.
Gregory Hall, hold on a second. John, I want you to chime in on the seed line. But Gregory Hall, you don't know anything about an AV cart coming in with a tube.
Yes,
TV.
I do.
No way.
You don't. This is impossible.
Third grade was my first memory of that. Third grade, the ACC tournament.
2006. That's when the iPhone came out.
Okay, I didn't say I went to a wealthy school.
Come on, man.
Third grade, second grade, they're rolling in the AV cart. Yes, 100%. John was there. John, same thing. Come on.
I had a Latin teacher who was pretty intense.
A Latin teacher. That tells me all I need to know.
This was 8th grade Latin. This guy pulled out a radio, and that was our reward for us. He turned up the radio so we could listen to the UNC game. No TV, but he'd allow a radio.
Oh my God, I'm not buying it. Y'all boys, I mean,
Dude,
look, you used to be in. So do y'all know what a reel-to-reel projector was? Like where they bring out the movie that you had to watch for class in a can?
Okay, we're talking about 2006, not 1957.
You're going too far for me too.
Am I the only one that they brought the thing out in the movie can, like in a can in a circle? Seriously, Greg, you're not that old?
I remember watching some of those, but that was
Maybe.
that was early '80s.
Oh my God. My favorite memory of the ACC tournament was senior in high school. I had a Walkman. Y'all know what a Walkman is? A Walkman radio.
Oh yeah.
Like even before the Walkman cassette. Gregory, you look like you're kind of like, I don't know what he's talking about.
I mean, it's old language, old word. I know it's something old. You know,
I put it in my members only jacket in my inside pocket.
okay.
And I ran the cord to here so I could listen to NC State as the 1 seed.
You probably thought you were
Nice.
so cool.
That's
I
a
was
veteran
cool.
move.
I was just like this in class, listening to State lose to Maryland in the first round of the ACC tournament. 12 o'clock game, Sherelle.
12 o'clock game. That's the way it should be.
John Bowman, can Carolina play its way out of the 10 seed, out of the 8-9 seed, into a 7 seed? What do they have to do?
I think in order for that to happen, UNC is going to have to run the table. And I'm just going to throw this out there for this group. I'm not saying I'm thinking it, but someone out there is probably thinking, would it make the most sense for UNC to, just stay on the 10 line and avoid that?
Yeah.
Somebody's thinking it. What do we think about that?
I mean, Roy said it pretty vehemently today on the radio show. Yesterday on the radio show, he almost called the ACC tournament more important. Like, he almost straight up was like, people care about this. It's like the granddaddy of it all. Like,
I agree with that several years ago. I don't think that is now.
Well, you have to look at it in the context of his team. I think that's level setting by the head coach.
Fair.
That says yes.
That is
considering that he has dismissed the ACC
Right.
tournament for a number.
That
of
is
years.
saying, you know what, guys? Of course, we want to win a national championship. Of course, we do. That's the goal. Everybody's goal. Blah 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 blah. But that code is our best chance of winning anything or a championship this year is these 4 games, because the ACC, while we've lost some games, the ACC isn't great. So if we can get on a run, get a championship, feel good about ourselves, win a game or 2 in the ACC tournament, NCAA tournament, and move on to next year, that's an ideal scenario. I think you have to read through the code on that one a little bit.
well, they got a good draw because they don't have to see Virginia until the championship game, right?
Like, are they ever going to be Virginia again? Ever?
No.
Well,
doesn't
I
feel
saw
like it.
somebody pick Georgia Tech getting to a championship game against Florida State.
Josh Pastner should have won Coach of the Year, but
I don't know about that.
What?
They're playing as well as anybody for sure, though, in the league. No doubt
Josh
about it.
Kastner.
Boy, you remember when once upon a time that Georgia Tech
Face
loss
shield,
was a
baby.
bad
I
loss?
love the face shield.
Say again?
Remember when that Notre Dame game, or excuse me, that Georgia Tech game was a bad loss for Carolina fans?
Not anymore.
Not so much. So let's look at it this way before we wrap this show up. We know they're playing Notre Dame. Carolina plays Notre Dame tomorrow. Obviously playing for is it the quarterfinals? I guess they get to now. Can't keep up, but
Yes.
as far as the NCAA tournament seedings, they're sitting on 10, right?
Mhm.
Does everybody agree there?
yes.
Does a win get them to 8-9
Probably.
Just tomorrow?
just tomorrow?
I think they're just
No.
fringe 10 right now. So I think a win, they move up to the 9.
Well, what is the lowest at-large bid normally for the NCAA tournament? You follow what
The
I'm
lowest,
saying? Yeah, like
It's
is
like
that
a
a
12
12?
seed, right?
Those are usually in the first
Yeah.
4.
I think it's
There's like a
And
12
then you
for
got
a
the
game.
first 4. I mean,
The
they're
first
not
4
in-
in are 12, or they're 10 or 12s.
Yeah, I
Well,
think
they have
there's
2
2 at
16s
large.
and 2 11s, don't they?
Yeah.
So, so Carolina's at a 10. Say they beat Notre Dame. Are they still a 10, or that they played their way into the 8-9?
I mean, Lenardi has them at 9 now.
Yeah, I think if they win tomorrow night, they're certainly an 8-9.
All right. So they got to get to the semis.
I think they have
To
to get
get
to
to-
Saturday.
Do they have to get to the championship to get out of the 8-9?
Here's the thing, though, because Virginia Tech, while they're the 3 seed,
They're not.
and I think Lenardi has them as what, a 9?
So it's not
I
really.
think
a
he has
win.
them UNC. I think he has UNC either one spot ahead of Virginia Tech or one spot behind.
So I don't
they're
know
like
that that's-
35 and 36.
Yes, I don't think that's going to give you this huge bump. I think you're going to have to win a game in the semifinal to move the needle any.
It's an
So-
interesting dynamic. So is there a 1 seed that Carolina would prefer to play?
Iowa, if they're a 1 seed.
Illinois has got to be that 1, right?
I've seen. I mean, again, I don't know as much about bracketology as these other people, but they seem to think Iowa has a good chance of, if they win a couple games or win the Big Ten tournament, to be number 1 seed.
Yeah, UNC's ahead of Virginia Tech in the net rankings right now.
That's interesting.
I think the 8-9. The good thing about getting an 8-9 seed is, if you can somehow pull the upset, which nobody's going to give them credit to do, then the bracket opens up for you, and you can make a run. We've seen Carolina do that a couple times, right? When Fox hit the
2000.
jumper over Oklahoma, when Ed Cota and those guys did it in 2000, yeah. So, that's best case scenario. But just this year, more than any other year, so top heavy. Gonzaga and Baylor clearly cream of the crop, but Illinois is they're number 7 in adjusted offensive efficiency, and they're number 6 in adjusted defensive efficiency.
Look what they did to Michigan without Dosunmu.
Yeah,
like without their best player.
So interesting. A friend of mine from Pennsylvania called me and said he's got Big Ten tournament tickets that I want to come and go with him. And if I could do it and not be like sleeping in the garage, I probably would have done it, because that's going to be one heck. That Big Ten tournament this year is going to be similar to the '96 ACC tournament.
yep.
They've all beaten each other, haven't they?
Yeah, they
already.
all
Like they've all there hasn't been like one that's been. Michigan was for a little bit, but then they lost.
Yeah.
Greg,
Sherelle, how many 3-pointers did Iowa hit against Carolina?
Was it 15, 16? 17.
17.
And still, in spite of all that, Carolina was in it at the under 8 timeout. And they couldn't have played, any sloppier for stretches and still find a way to get back into that game. So, I think about the Kentucky team that went to the title game. I can't remember what year that was, the awful championship game against UConn. I think about that team a lot when it comes to Carolina, not predicting that Carolina is going to go on this magical run or anything, but teams with talent who underachieve in the regular season. And I think it's fair to say that Carolina underachieved to some degree. If they can just get a little hot in the postseason, like crazy things can happen with talent, because talent always comes to the top. I feel like that Kentucky team, it had, like I said, it had more, I would call it elite talent at the top, but they did it too. They went through, I think, Michigan, and they went through the number 1 seed is escaping me. Was Wichita State? I think that was Wichita State. That was a great game.
That's right.
Wichita State game when Harrison was just making every 3 with 3 seconds left to push him into the Final Four and everything. So it's not crazy. It's not absurd. And I think outside of Gonzaga and Baylor, because they are the top 2, I think you give Carolina the puncher's chance with pretty much all of those guys, except for Baylor and Gonzaga. I don't think they can beat those 2 teams, but outside of that, who knows what might happen on, any night.
Sherelle.
Right, and
I'll be enjoying my Blue
No, but
Cup
Tommy,
come
let me
April.
let me build on that, and Sherelle can disagree with this or not. I think Sherelle's exactly right there, and I think that's part of the frustrating thing about this team. And I made this point on the message board today or yesterday. It's not a question of whether or not North Carolina can beat any of these teams. I don't give them much of a chance against Baylor or Gonzaga, but anybody else, as Sherelle said, they've got a chance. The issue is we have not seen this team put together 3 good games in a row, let alone 6, let alone 4 for this week. And that's the challenge. It's not, can they beat this team on any given night? Yes, they can. Can they string together a bunch of those games? We have not seen that. And so that's what's got to click for this team very quickly.
All right, Sherelle, I got a recruiting question. It's already popped up. Trey Wirtz, Charlotte kid. Did we ever seriously recruit him?
Define seriously, and I will answer your question. No. Roy Williams called him. That's serious. When Roy Williams calls a player from a Carolina perspective, that is serious interest. So he called him and kind of gauged interest, and I don't think he called him back. This is when he was transferring from Santa Clara. When he was in high school he went to Providence High School in Charlotte. He was on a team actually with Grant Williams, him and
Tennessee's Grant Williams.
Grant Williams and Devon Donson. They were all on the same high school team.
Wow.
And so Carolina saw him, but I think they just didn't quite see everything they needed to. But same thing with NC State and Wake Forest and the other in-state schools, and that's why he went out to Santa Clara. Like I said, on the transfer, they gauged interest, and I think they liked him, but not enough to kind of fill up a scholarship. Not knowing if he would be eligible this season. This is kind of in the midst of the coronavirus, so everything was really up in the air. So I think that was part of it too, and especially the part about whether or not he'd be eligible next year. If they would have known, maybe they would have pushed more. But I think generally they were, I don't want to say lukewarm, but they liked him, but not enough really to push hard.
It's amazing if hindsight, if everybody could look back into the past to pull up folks to the future, it would be a different world, wouldn't it?
It
It's
would be.
amazing. And I guess that's what our message boards do. Shout out to Palm Beach Hill for being the first on that after the shot to ask the question. John Bowman, I'm going to give you the floor. I'm going to go around the room. We're going to wrap the show. Share your parting thoughts to this Inside Carolina Live, I guess, viewing party or whatever it was, the Wake Forest laying an egg party. John, go ahead.
First of all, thanks for having me. Good to see everyone. I think this shot tonight is a harbinger of things to come for the ACC tournament. It's been a weird year with all the COVID stuff. There's no dominant ACC team. So we had a buzzer beater tonight. I'm predicting chaos the rest of the bracket. No one is safe. Some crazy team is going to win it. I think it's going to be a really exciting tournament.
Some
Nice.
crazy team.
Some crazy team. Yeah. Gregory Hall, you're up.
Nowhere.
I'm trying to think of who I think is going to win the tournament. And like to your point, Georgia Tech is a hot team right now. Someone said that. They're playing good basketball, but they have to go through Virginia, and that's always tough. I'm going to go back to when we did our buy or sell. I said UNC could get to the Sweet 16. I stand by that. And I think even if they get to Friday, I think if they win 2 games in a row, and I don't think they have to win on Friday to have the confidence of like, look, we can put good games together. It might be a little different because with being in Indianapolis, you don't have the win on Thursday or Friday, win on Saturday, Sunday, and then come home and kind of decompress. They don't have that, so that might make it a little more difficult in their seeding. But I think if UNC gets to Friday, they'll have the confidence that they can at least get to the second round, and then if they have a good thing, they can get to the second weekend.
Sherelle, what you got?
Yeah, I was gonna say, kind of borrowing from John, I want to see 2 good performances in a row. The outcome isn't as important as how they play. So if you take 2 good games in a row, I can say, okay, they can do it. They've shown they can do it recently, because all the NCAA tournament is, when you think about winning a championship, is 3 2-game tournaments. That's all it is. So if they can show me they can play, good tomorrow and good on Friday, or Friday and Saturday, whatever, then I'll think they have a chance, because that's something that frankly has just been hard for them to do, is play consecutive games well where they don't turn the ball over and they shoot a decent percentage. It feels like there still hasn't been that game where Walton is hitting his shots and the post players are finishing through contact, and Love and Davis are keeping their turnovers down. There hasn't been that game yet. So I think it kind of still hopeful for them that it'll happen. I don't know that it will, but that's what I'm looking for. Just 2 solid performances in a row, and the result is immaterial to me.
Greg Barnes, how you feel?
Greg, part of your parting words have to be what you're drinking, per Nick Whitfield in the chat.
This is going to be an unpopular opinion, but this is actually Booker's. I am not a fan. I am struggling to get this down.
Is that that Inside Carolina tumbler that you have there?
You better believe it.
There,
Oh,
man.
nice.
Yeah, how about
How
that?
do I get one of those?
You got to know a guy.
Are you the guy?
I know a guy.
I have one of those cups behind you, but I want one of those.
You got one of these?
Yeah,
See,
I want one of those whiskey glasses.
These this stuff right here, man, it's like gold, Gregory.
Yeah,
You,
it's
you
I
good
gotta
have
be
one of those. I want those. I want the low ball.
you got to know a guy. Just ask nicely. Tell me where to send them. Greg,
So
close it.
I think North Carolina needed something to go in their favor to kind of give them a leg up to start the postseason, and I think they got it by beating Duke and some of the chaos that ensued previously in the week. They were able to get the number 6 seed. I think they're going to be a big favorite over Notre Dame just because of the offensive rebounding that we've already discussed. And I think, regardless if it was Wake or Notre Dame, they're going to be a big favorite. And then Virginia Tech has played 2 games in 33 days when they tip off on Thursday.
That's crazy.
It's nuts. Yeah. And I know a lot of people kind of dismiss the idea that, Louisville, who cares that they were coming off break? Look, it affects some teams. Other teams deal with it better. We don't know exactly what to expect from Virginia Tech, but you have to like North Carolina's chances in that game just because Virginia Tech hadn't played. They practiced, they hadn't played. And so we talk about, I think Sherelle's point about seeing them win 2 games is important. I would disagree a little bit that it's just how they play, not necessarily a result. I think they need to build confidence to say, okay, well, we beat Duke, we beat Notre Dame, and we beat Virginia Tech. Now we've won 3 in a row, right? This team hasn't won 4 games in a row all year long. And so if you can go into that what do we decide it was Friday? Is that the semis? That's the semis.
Friday's the semis, yeah.
Friday's
Oh, Lord.
Why is that so difficult?
Because
Fridays
you
are for
don't
the
understand,
quarterfinals.
man.
Because you don't understand, man.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
They go into
You know,
quarterfinal Friday.
At least John sits there quietly.
With
John's just
some
happy
momentum.
to be here. Okay.
John, I have much respect for young men that respect their elders. Go ahead, Greg.
But if you can go into Friday, in the quarterfinal Friday, feeling good about yourself and being on a 3-game winning streak, that builds confidence. And I think that's very important for this team. Once you get to the semis, you're going to be playing really good teams. So I don't think it's imperative that they actually win the tournament, although that'd be nice. But I think that's what they need going into NCAA, saying, look, we showed already in March that we can win 3 games in a row. Let's do everything we can to get through the first weekend. And then if you find a rhythm there, Dean Smith always said, and Roy said it since, you build momentum once you get into a tournament. Who knows what can happen? Maybe that talent, like Sherelle said, like the Kentucky team years ago, maybe it finally clicks and you hit some big shots and still a couple games, and then you're rolling. But I don't expect them to win the ACC tournament. But I'll tell you, I do think they get to Friday, and then we'll have to see exactly how things play out.
Yeah, I'm with you guys. I'm with Sherelle as well. They got to play 2 games in a row. That they look good, not just win. I mean, they need to be impressive against Notre Dame tomorrow. What is that at 9:00 now? Which, thank goodness, the ACC tournament is going to play the opening round games or the first night sessions at 6:30.
Yeah.
So they're playing at 9 instead of 9:30. So I won't be doing an Inside Carolina postgame podcast at midnight. But I want to see them play well and do it in a way that they beat Notre Dame. Notre Dame just doesn't lay an egg. So Carolina's got to do that. That Virginia Tech game is one I want to see. And I want to see it for this reason. And Greg, you mentioned 2 games in 33 days. Part of me thinks, the conspiracy thinks to me that Virginia Tech sat out some ball games. I mean, it's convenient for them that they missed all the tough games or 90% of their tough basketball games and finished 3rd in the ACC tournament or in the ACC standings. Is it worth it for them? We shall see what happens on Thursday, but Carolina's got to play well. They've got to show that they can play well. I'm not a buyer at this point. If they blow Notre Dame out, I might start buying a little bit. If they blow Virginia Tech out, then we'll talk.
Tommy, Virginia Tech has 9 ACC wins. They got 2 wins against Wake. They got 2 wins against Miami. They got 2 wins against Notre Dame. They beat Duke. And they did beat Clemson, and of course they did beat Virginia. So they've got a couple big wins there. But I mean, 6 of those wins are against bottom of the barrel. So who knows?
Yeah, I mean, and look, you play the game at the rules they let you play. And Virginia Tech played it well. We'll see if it paid out for them when they have to face either Carolina or Notre Dame on Thursday. I can't get it. Gregory, I'm sorry, man. I can't figure it out.
Thursday.
It's not right, Gregory. You did not see an AV cart come in your room. You did not go push the AV cart in. I don't believe it.
What I would do, Tommy. So my dad was very nice, and we didn't go to school. Like
what?
Probably half of them between like K and seventh grade, we just took the Friday of ACC tournament off.
That's
And
awesome. Yeah.
Nice.
We would get in the car and we would listen, turn into in favor was Oldies 96.5. And we would listen to Woody all day long because the Carolina Network did all the games then. So we would
Yep.
just sit there and listen in the car and listen. Like great memories. So
How crazy was that hearing Woody Durham do like Clemson and Wake Forest or something?
always
That was
weird.
a cool thing.
Always weird. Yeah.
It was you youngsters just don't get it. You'll never get it, Gregory. It's okay though. It's been the Inside Carolina podcast. We've been live the whole time. I don't know if that was a good or bad thing. I guess it was good. Nobody shut us down. We didn't get like zapped. And
FCC's coming though.
really, I said a bad word earlier. Hope
I
Ben
accidentally
Sherman did.
flashed the like I pulled over the game for like half a second onto the screen. I was like, uh oh.
I didn't even notice. I was too busy watching my delayed stream. Greg Barnes with the Holly Springs.
That country club Wi-Fi.
Fiber, baby.
We're going to try to do this more often, guys, but it's been the On the Beat podcast. If you're going to listen to it, you're going to listen to it on YouTube for this one, but it's been a pleasure. Rel, John, Gregory, always a pleasure, my guys.
Thanks for having me.
Yep, Johnny T-shirt and JohnnyT-shirt.com. Support them. Do your part. We'll do our part. We'll see you soon. Thanks.